Today's story is about Leonard Hale, a quiet forensic accountant who saw the red flags long before his wife ever packed her bags. While she was planning her escape with another man, Leonard was preparing something else, a quiet, devastating response. What followed wasn't revenge, it was strategy. Legal, precise, and impossible to undo. Stay with me, because this isn't just about losing love, it's about outsmarting the betrayal and walking away not bitter, but better. There's something I'd like to before mentioning we begin. Due to some personal and sensitive reasons, I've chosen not to show my face on this channel. I hope you'll understand and respect that choice. Also, some of the stories here were shared by you, the viewers. I'm simply the one telling them with honesty, care, and deep appreciation. If you have any thoughts, feedback, or just a feeling you'd like to share after listening, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. I read everyone and truly value what you have to say. Now then, let's listen to today's story together. There are some nights you never forget, not because of what was said, but because of what it meant. For Leonard Hale, that night arrived as quietly as a whisper, yet cracked louder than thunder. It was 11:42 p.m. on a Thursday in Des Moines. Leonard stood in the kitchen of his condo, a familiar mug of coffee warming his palm when his phone lit up. A text from Dana. "I'm not coming back. I've met someone better. Your things are in storage. Goodbye." Attached, a screenshot, $118,000 transferred from their joint savings to an account in her name. Just like that, 15 years of marriage collapsed into a notification. Leonard stared at the screen. No anger, no yelling, just a slow, deliberate exhale. He was a forensic accountant. Cold numbers, clear patterns, that was his life. If emotion clouded his decisions, he never showed it. And if Dana thought her message would shatter him, she clearly never understood the man she married. He set the phone down, finished his coffee, walked to the hallway where their wedding photo still hung. She hadn't even bothered to ask for it back. Not that she needed to. She'd been erasing him for months. Leonard had noticed the signs. The new wardrobe she never wore around him, the increasing time away for retreats, the way her phone would go silent the moment he walked into a room. He noticed everything, because noticing was his job. And 5 years earlier, after a brief scare involving a client who was bankrupted by a cheating spouse, Leonard had designed a plan. A legal, surgical, and devastating contingency plan. Something Dana had never known about. Something she'd now activated by pressing send. He picked up the phone again, not to text Dana, but to call his brother. "Jason, it's time." A pause. Then Jason asked, "Are you sure?" "She just made her move." He hung up. In the silence that followed, Leonard felt something unexpected. Relief. The veil was gone. The truth had come into full focus. He walked to his desk, opened his laptop, and logged into an email account Dana didn't know existed. 3 alerts awaited him from his security systems. Password attempts. One on a trust account, one on a crypto wallet, one on an LLC file system. She'd been busy. He couldn't even be mad. She was methodical, but he was better. The next morning, Leonard's routine didn't change. He made breakfast, dressed neatly, walked into his office like it was any other Friday. Because for everyone else, it was. But for Leonard, it was day one of something new. He logged into his financial command center, custom software built for managing multi-tiered assets. And then, with a few simple keystrokes, he initiated what he and Jason called Protocol 0. Step 1. Freeze all joint accounts. Step 2. Trigger immediate fraud alerts on all transfers made in the past 48 hours. Step 3. Lock all personal credit lines, update all passcodes, and cut off access to every asset Dana had ever known about. By 10 a.m., Dana's money grab was no longer liquid. By noon, Leonard's attorney had the documentation for financial misconduct, and by the time Dana tried to call, it was too late. He let the first call go to voicemail, the second, the third. Then came the text. "What the hell did you do? The money's gone, and my cards won't work." He didn't respond. Instead, he drove to the address listed on her text, the storage unit she'd apparently dumped his life into. Inside, he found 2 boxes, clothes, a laptop, and nothing else. Photos were missing. His father's old watch, gone. Even his childhood baseball glove. This wasn't divorce. This was deletion. Back in his car, Leonard opened the laptop. Within minutes, he found what he was looking for. Dana had been publicly tagging a man named Trey in photos for weeks. Trey Harmon, a tanned, muscled fitness influencer with more followers than receipts. A quick background search showed the truth beneath the sheen. 3 maxed-out credit cards, a business loan in arrears, and a gym whose equipment had been used as collateral. Dana hadn't upgraded. She'd invested recklessly. She had no idea that Leonard's specialty was following money like blood through veins. He called Jason again. "I want everything on Trey Harmon. Business records, loan details, LLC filings. Legal channels only." "You got it," Jason replied. And so began Leonard's quiet war. Not one of rage, but of red ink, balance sheets, and ice-cold strategy. Because if Dana thought she'd stolen a fortune, she had no idea the fortune she didn't see. They say when the heart breaks, the brain sharpens. For Leonard Hale, that had always been true in reverse. Emotion was a distant echo. What mattered was structure, strategy, the plan behind the moment. And as Dana's betrayal spilled into the light, Leonard didn't crumble. He calculated. 3 days had passed since her message. 3 days since she emptied the joint savings and told him, in cold text, that she'd moved on with someone better. But Leonard knew there was no plan behind her actions. Just impulse, ego, and a man named Trey Harmon. Trey's public persona was sculpted like his abs, manufactured and sold in shiny packages. But Jason's findings showed the rot beneath. Harmon Fitness LLC was a paper tiger, overleveraged, underperforming, bleeding money into marketing fluff while back-end payments defaulted. Trey had 3 business credit cards on life support, a commercial lease in arrears, and worst of all, a $175,000 equipment loan co-signed by Dana, using marital status as leverage. He listed her as a co-owner and spouse, Jason told Leonard over coffee that morning. That gave him a preferred rate. She signed for it 6 weeks ago. Leonard blinked slowly. "While still living with me." Jason nodded. "Which means your financials were part of the deal. They assumed your assets backed hers." Dana had staked their marriage as collateral, and now she'd run, straight into the arms of a man 1 loan away from foreclosure. Leonard's response was swift. He met with his attorney, Amelia Greer, a no-nonsense legal tactician with the smile of a chess master. They reviewed every document: bank records, loan paperwork, transfers to Trey's LLC. Amelia tapped her pen against the desk. "She's not just guilty of financial misconduct, Leonard. She's committed fraud." "Enough to escalate?" She raised an eyebrow. "Enough to freeze everything." That afternoon, they filed an emergency petition for asset protection. Within 48 hours, every dollar that Dana hadn't already moved was locked in place. Her attempts to use their home as credit leverage were blocked. Even her car loan flagged for review. By the time Dana stormed into Leonard's office the next morning, the walls were already closing in. She didn't knock. She barged in. Receptionists whispered as she passed, her yoga gear flawless, fury bubbling just under the surface. "Leonard!" she hissed. "What the hell have you done?" He stood calmly behind his desk, glancing at her over reading glasses. "Secured my assets. What else?" "You froze the accounts. All of them. I have clients to pay. Deposits I need. And I had a marriage. Now we both have problems." Dana's face twisted. "You're doing this because I left you." "No," he replied. "I'm doing this because you stole from me. Left or not, you emptied our account and co-signed on someone else's failing dream." Her voice dropped. "I've invested in Trey's future. You were always just numbers, cold, boring." "Cold pays the bills," Leonard replied. "Warmth doesn't cover fraud." She tried again. "We can still fix this." Leonard's eyes hardened. "Number you left. You took what you thought was everything. What you didn't know was that you took nothing I hadn't already planned to lose." Dana's jaw clenched. Outside, the receptionist pretended not to listen. Leonard continued. "There are accounts you never knew about. Trusts, LLCs, holdings in your name that were shells, designed to alert me the moment you made your move. You tripped every wire." She stepped back like he'd struck her. "You planned this?" "I prepared," he said simply, "because some part of me always knew who you were." She turned and walked out, this time quietly. That night, Leonard received an email from Dana's newly hired attorney. It was full of bravado, threats of legal action, demands for access to marital records, claims of emotional manipulation. Leonard didn't flinch. He forwarded the email to Amelia with 2 words: "Proceed quietly." And they did. Over the next week, the pieces came together. Dana had funneled more than $80,000 from their accounts to Trey's business over the past 14 months. Little by little, hidden in vendor fees, studio expansions, and retreat deposits. The moment that data was verified, Amelia filed a formal divorce complaint citing financial infidelity, asset misappropriation, and fraud. When Dana tried to open a new line of credit using Leonard's name, denied. When she attempted to refinance the condo to cover Trey's gym lease, flagged. And when Trey tried to secure another loan using Dana's yoga studio as collateral, declined. By now, Trey was panicking. Leonard got the first text late Thursday. "You need to back off. Dana deserves better than you. This doesn't have to get messy." Leonard laughed out loud. Then he replied with a single sentence. "Tell your lender to check the co-signature terms on your equipment loan." He never got a reply. The next day, Jason called. "You want the punchline?" he asked. "Hit me." "Trey's gym? It's being seized. The lender's calling the loan. All of it." Leonard said nothing for a moment. Then, "Send me the documentation." He didn't need vengeance. He needed Dana to understand one thing. You never betray a man who sees through numbers. Because while she was busy chasing likes and posing for selfies with Trey, Leonard was quietly closing every door behind her. Some people fight with emotion. Others fight with evidence. Leonard Hale always believed that truth wasn't loud. It was documented. And now, standing in the center of the storm Dana had created, he wasn't wielding rage. He was wielding receipts. 3 days after his confrontation with Dana, Leonard received the call he'd been waiting for. "Banks confirmed it," his attorney Amelia said over the phone. "Dana forged your signature, multiple times." Leonard didn't blink. "On the equipment loan? And on a lease application, and 2 credit lines, all in the last 6 months." He exhaled slowly. "That'll hold in court?" "It won't even make it to court if she's smart. We're forwarding everything to the district attorney's office. The bank's already launched their own fraud inquiry." Leonard stood at his office window, watching the traffic below. For years, Dana had claimed to feel trapped by his routines, his steady job, his quiet life. But in the end, It was her reckless attempt at freedom that had wrapped her in chains. When the gym's equipment was seized the following morning, Trey Harmon finally realized the depth of his mistake. Leonard knew because Trey called him. Voicemail only. "We need to talk. This is getting out of control. I didn't know she used your name. She said it was all clean." Leonard didn't call back. He didn't need to. Trey had walked into a minefield, lit by Dana's charm and funded by Leonard's trust. And now, the only thing collapsing faster than Trey's gym was Dana's carefully curated life. Social media had gone quiet, retreats canceled, clients ghosted her yoga studio. Their mutual friends, once rallying to her defense, stopped texting Leonard altogether. No apologies. Just silence. That suited him fine, because the court wasn't silent. Amelia filed for emergency mediation. Dana was served the following Monday, showing up to the courthouse in a pantsuit that tried to say power, but whispered panic. Her lawyer did the talking, pushing for reasonable compromise. Leonard sat still as stone. He let Amelia handle it. "The bank's internal audit confirmed the signatures were forged," Amelia said, sliding the papers across the table. "They've submitted everything to the DA." Dana's face paled as she read. Her attorney blustered about intent, about miscommunication, about marital confusion. But nothing could explain 3 fake signatures or the fact that Dana had leveraged Leonard's financial identity to prop up her boyfriend's failed empire. When Amelia offered a settlement, no alimony, Dana keeps her studio and personal belongings, assumes full responsibility for all debts, Leonard watched her hesitate. "You're serious?" she whispered. "You're really doing this?" Leonard leaned forward. "You signed away everything the day you left. I'm just formalizing it." She blinked rapidly. "You don't even want revenge?" "I don't need revenge," he said. "I've already won." That evening, Dana tried one last play. A long message. The tone softened. No accusations, no threats, just nostalgia. "Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe I didn't realize how much you meant until I saw what I lost. Come home. Let's talk. Just us." Leonard stared at the message. Then he deleted it. Because forgiveness wasn't owed. Not when the betrayal was calculated. He wasn't bitter. He was better. The next day, Leonard received a package. No return label. Inside, a small box containing his father's watch and several framed photos he hadn't seen since Dana moved out. No note, just a silent concession. She knew she'd gone too far, and now she had nothing left to hold over him. Leonard placed the items gently on a shelf in his new office. A space free of shadows, free of whispers. A place built by facts, not illusions. As he leaned back in his chair, his phone buzzed. Jason. "Guess what?" he said, excitement in his voice. Leonard smiled faintly. "Tell me." "She's moving. Colorado, new studio, rebranding, a new journey, according to her bio." "Let her," Leonard said. "She might be free of the mess, but not the consequences." Jason laughed. "Amen to that." Because Dana thought she'd escaped with everything. She didn't realize she'd left all the evidence behind. Some battles are loud, fought in courtrooms, behind closed doors, through shouting and shattered trust. But Leonard Hale's war ended in silence. No explosions. Just the slow collapse of a false life, documented line by line. The mediation was done. The fraud investigation was active, and Dana had signed the divorce settlement without contest, shocked, cornered, and with no legal defense that could survive the weight of her signature forgeries. For Leonard, there was no joy in watching her unravel, but there was clarity. After years of being the quiet provider, the invisible architect of their lives, he was finally seeing the structure for what it had become. A facade held together by his silence and her performance. Weeks passed. The paperwork processed. The financial institutions finalized freezes and transfers. Every liability she'd attached to his name was removed. Dana now legally owned all her choices and their consequences. And Trey Harmon? His gym was repossessed. His brand shattered. Last Leonard heard, he'd fled to Miami, trying to rebuild his image under a new name, posting inspirational content from rented spaces. But the algorithm can't erase debt. Leonard didn't follow. He focused on the future. He moved out of the hotel and into a modest craftsman home near downtown Des Moines. Nothing flashy, just clean lines, strong bones, and a fixer-upper vibe that gave him something to do with his hands. The kind of space that didn't echo with someone else's expectations. Jason stopped by one Saturday with a six-pack and a toolkit. "You good?" he asked, handing Leonard a beer. Leonard nodded. "Better than I've been in years." They worked in easy rhythm, measuring, drilling, laughing at old jokes, and for the first time, Leonard realized he wasn't carrying the weight anymore. It had been lifted. No more retreats that were really escapes. No more watching his accounts for suspicious transactions. No more pretending not to see the cracks because he was too afraid of what they meant. Freedom had a strange sound. It was quiet. That evening, sitting on the back porch, Leonard opened a leather-bound folder. Inside were the original documents to his contingency plan. LLC filings, trust instructions, asset protections. 5 years ago, he'd created it out of caution. Now, it had saved him. He poured a glass of bourbon and raised it slightly, not in a toast to revenge, but to readiness, to foresight, to never again being blindsided by someone too short-sighted to understand the power of preparation. The next morning, he called his office. "Tell the team I'm taking a few weeks off." Valerie, his assistant, laughed softly. "About time. Where are you going?" "North," he said. "Cabin, just me." As he packed his truck, Leonard paused to look around the house one more time. It wasn't filled with luxury like the old condo, but it was honest. Every piece earned. Every fixture something he'd chosen. He left the house with nothing but a bag, a fishing rod, and his father's old watch ticking gently on his wrist. No texts from Dana. No voicemails from lawyers. No pressure from anyone. Just the road, the lake, the silence. He drove for 6 hours through changing landscapes, letting the noise of his former life fall away behind him. And by the time he reached the edge of the Minnesota woods, Leonard was no longer the man who got left during a girls' trip. He was the man who'd already left long before she knew it. Up in northern Minnesota, surrounded by tall pines and the steady hush of wind over water, Leonard Hale finally exhaled the last breath he'd been holding for years. The cabin was small. Just 2 rooms, a wood stove, and a deck that overlooked the lake. It had once belonged to his father, a man who taught Leonard the value of quiet, of doing the work no one else sees. The kind of man Dana would have found boring. But Leonard had never needed to be exciting. He just needed to be prepared. The days passed gently. He rose with the sun, made strong coffee on the stovetop, fished until the clouds thickened, then read by lamplight as dusk set in. The rhythm was clean, uncluttered, unconditional. Each night, as the fire popped and hissed, Leonard sat on the deck with a journal and wrote. Not about Dana, not even about Trey, but about himself, the man he had been before 15 years of compromise eroded his edges. The man who'd stayed up late working through spreadsheets while someone else scrolled for attention. The man who had tried to be enough by becoming invisible. But invisibility is never the answer. Sometimes it's the weapon. One night, after an early storm rolled across the lake, Leonard received a letter forwarded from his attorney. Inside was a brief note in Dana's handwriting. I'm starting over. Colorado's beautiful, but hard. I made mistakes. I won't ask you to forget them, but I want you to know I've started paying off what I can. Not for you, for me. Dana. Enclosed was a cashier's check for $3,100, a fraction of the damage. Still, Leonard folded it neatly and tucked it into his ledger. Not as closure, but as evidence that even the reckless eventually reckon with reality. He didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. By the end of the second week, Leonard packed up the cabin and drove back to Des Moines, not with dread, but with purpose. He'd made decisions during those quiet mornings, intentions. He would downscale his practice, take on fewer clients, focus on mentoring young forensic accountants. He wanted to teach others how to see through numbers and through people. Jason helped him set up a local workshop at the community college. The first night, Leonard stood before a class of 25, a marker in hand. Trust is a system, he began, and systems either have safeguards or they fail. A few students nodded slowly, sensing there was more behind those words than a textbook. And they were right. Months passed. Seasons turned. Leonard's home became his own in every way, filled not with lavish things, but with reclaimed wood, real conversations, and a dog he rescued from a shelter named Radar, who liked to sleep at his feet while he worked. One afternoon, while organizing old case files, he came across a photo. Dana and him in Venice, years ago. She was smiling. He was already looking away. Leonard stared at it for a while, then shredded it. He didn't need reminders. He had the scars. But he also had the freedom. Not the kind that comes from revenge or winning, but the kind that comes from knowing you survived the worst version of someone and still chose to build something better. The final alert came quietly one day, an automated message from the bank. Fraud inquiry closed. No further action required. File sealed. Leonard marked the case as resolved, not just on paper, but in his life. And that night, as the sun dipped low over the Des Moines skyline, he sat on his porch with a cup of black coffee and his dog at his side. No texts, no drama, no debts owed, just balance, just peace. And for the first time in a long, long time, he didn't feel like someone left behind. He felt like someone who finally came home.